This is going to be Amber and Legolas riding the World Dressage Federation Foundation Level 1 Test 3. A. Enter at the working walk. Proceed down center line to C without halting. C, track to the left. HXF, change rein, lengthening the horse's stride and allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward. Between F and A, develop working walk. K to E, shoulder 4 between K and E. E to M, change rein. M to H, continue working walk to H. H to E, shoulder 4 between H and E. E to F, change the rein. F to V, develop working walk in preparation to trot. E, working trot. E to M, continue working trot. M to F, lengthen the stride. Between F and A, balance the horse after the lengthening. After A, turn right on quarter line. Leg yield left along quarter line, arriving at rail after E. S, circle right 20 meters twice, allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward on the first circle. Then developing the working trot on the second. S to M, working trot. MXK, change rein, lengthening stride in the working trot. K to A, balance the horse after the lengthening. After A, turn left on quarter line. Leg yield right along quarter line, arriving at rail after B. At R, circle left 20 meters twice, allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward on the first circle, then developing the working trot on the second. R to H, working trot. H, X, F, change rein, lengthening the stride in the working trot. Between F and K, transition to walk. K to X, working walk along diagonal. X down center line. Between I and G, halt, salute. Dismount, stand quietly for a moment. You may reward your horse. Take the reins over the horse's head and leave the arena leading the horse at its shoulder. Now we're going to go right on and I'm going to show you this again. Now, Amber would, of course, walked out of the arena here before we started talking. She did a great job on this test. And once again, she's only ridden through this once very quickly before we did this. So great job to Amber for stepping up and doing this. This is going to be Amber and Legolas riding the World Dressage Federation Foundation Level 1 Test 3. A, enter at the working walk. This time we're going to go through the test and talk about the issues that would affect scoring. Proceed down center line to C without halting. Good straight center line here. To the left. HXF, change rein, lengthening the horse's stride and allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward. Here the stretch comes very nicely. Could have a little more swing and a little more overreach. You can see how he kind of slows down there for a moment and loses his rhythm. So she has to ask him back underneath himself again. Between F and A, developed working walk. K to E, shoulder 4 between K and E. Horse comes back into the working walk very nicely. Now remember, these are shoulder 4s and not shoulder ins. It's a little bit too wide, but we're not looking for bend. The shoulder 4 is really a leg yield. E to M, change rein. Little momentary loss of rhythm there in the middle. M to H, continue working walk to H. H to E, shoulder 4 between H and E. Little loss of rhythm.
The beginning of the leg yield is unbalanced.
E to F, change the rein.
Horse comes off the bit and falls back to the rail. Just a little bit unsettled over his back here, so the rhythm is not perfect.
F to V, develop working walk in preparation to trot.
Good preparation to trot. Horse lifts up well in the preparation.
E to M, continue working trot.
Does not stay balanced in the upwards transition.
M to F, lengthen the stride.
Second half of the lengthening is good.
Between F and A, bounce the horse after the lengthening. After A, turn right on quarter line. Leg yield left along quarter line, arriving at rail after E.
Good leg yield and rhythm.
S, circle right 20 meters twice, allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward on the first circle. Then developing the working trot on the second.
Takes a little too long to get into the stretch, loses his balance for a moment.
S to M, working trot.
Comes back well into the working trot.
MXK, change rein, lengthening stride in the working trot. K to A, bounce the horse after the lengthening. After A, turn left on quarter line.
There was a little loss of balance in the middle of that, and the lengthening was not quite enough.
Leg yield right along quarter line, arriving at rail after B.
A little loss of balance.
Circle left 20 meters twice, allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward on the first circle, then developing the working trot on the second.
Unbalanced in the stretch, but does get there. A little unsteady coming back into the frame.
R to H, working trot.
But good working trot after.
HXF, change rein, lengthening the stride in the working trot.
Unbalanced in the turn.
Between F and K, transition to walk.
Lengthening doesn't develop till the middle of the arena.
K to X, working walk along diagonal.
Good downwards transition, though loses contact with the bridle.
X down center line. Between I and G, halt, salute.
Little veering off center line. Good halt.
Dismount, stand quietly for a moment. You may reward your horse. Take the reins over the horse's head and leave the arena leading the horse at its shoulder.
Horse stays very relaxed in this, if a little unattentive.
Now we're going to go right on, and I'm going to show you this again. Now, Amber would, of course, walked out of the arena here before we started talking. She did a great job on this test, and once again, she's only ridden through this once very quickly before we did this. So great job to Amber for stepping up and doing this. This is going to be Amber and Legolas riding the World Dressage Federation Foundation Level 1, Test 3.
This time I'll
A, enter at the working walk.
This time I will score the test so you could see how it would be scored in competition.
Proceed down center line to C without halting. C, track to the left.
Straight on center line, 6.
HXF, change rein, lengthening the horse's stride and allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward.
C, tracking left, would have been a 6. Not reaching enough in the stretch.
Between F
Losing
and
rhythm,
A,
5.
develop working walk. K to E, shoulder 4 between K and E.
6 on the previous movement there of developing the working walk. Slight loss of rhythm and a little bit too wide. 6.
E to M, change rein. M to H, continue working walk to H.
Loss of balance there in the center, 5.
H to E, shoulder 4 between H and E.
Not quite
E
enough
to
angle,
F,
horse
change
coming
the
off the
rein.
bridle, 3. Better rhythm in the change, 6.
F to V, develop working walk in preparation to trot. E, working trot.
Good preparation, 7.
E to M, continue working trot.
Unsteady in the transition, 4.
M to F, lengthen the stride.
Some lengthening there, but a little bit late.
Between F and A, bounce
5.
the horse after the lengthening. After A, turn right on quarter line. Leg yield left along quarter line, arriving at rail after E.
Previous movement there was a 5 in that transition.
S, circle right 20 meters twice, allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward on the first circle. Then developing the working trot on the second.
Hesitant in the beginning into the stretch, but good once it develops.
S to M, working trot.
Little unsteady in the frame, but comes back into a good working trot. 6.
MXK, change rein, lengthening stride in the working trot.
Working trot through that end down there from S to M was a 6. Not enough in the lengthening
K
of the
to
stride,
A,
late
bounce
to
the horse
develop.
after the lengthening. After A, turn left on quarter line.
4.
Leg yield right along quarter line, arriving at rail after B.
Hindquarters.
At R, circle left 20 meters twice, allowing the horse to stretch forward and downward on the first circle, then developing the working trot on the second.
Hindquarters were leading in the last exercise and a little unsteady going into that. 5. Circle takes a little too long to develop into the stretch, a little bit hesitant coming back, but comes back into a good
R
working
to
trot.
H, working trot.
6.
H, X, F, change rein, lengthening the stride in the working trot.
Good working trot, R to H. 7.
Between F and K, transition to walk.
Not enough in the lengthening, a little bit late starting there. 5. Transition to
K
walk.
to X, working walk
Good.
along diagonal.
But a little bit off the bridle. 5.
X down center line. Between I and G, halt, salute.
Little loss of rhythm on the diagonal. 5. Seven for the last halt.
Stand quietly for a moment. You may reward your horse. Take the reins over the horse's head and leave the arena leading the horse at its shoulder.
Now, of course, we don't see her walking out, but we're going to make that a 7 there.
Now we're going to go right on, and I'm going to show you this again. Now, Amber would, of course, walked out of the arena here before we started talking. She did a great job on this test. And once again, she's only ridden through this once very quickly before we did this. So great job to Amber for stepping up and doing this.
Now, while this just plays in the background, we're going to talk about the collective marks, which are the marks at the end of the test. The first collective mark is for horse's correct level of physical development for the level entered. And I think this horse is well developed for this level of work. He's clearly developed over his top line, has a well-developed top line. So we're going to give him an 8 on that. Harmony between horse and rider, most of the time this is very, very good. It's not seamless yet. There's still moments when Amber's hands have to get a little bit out of position, these kinds of things. But the horse is listening to her well, and I think for the most part we have a good team working here, though it's not seamless. If we were going to call it a 10, I'd have to never see the rider move, and the horse would have to stay perfectly in the frame at all times. So we're going to give her a 7 for harmony between horse and rider on this particular test. Now, rider's correct level of physical development for the level entered. This would include the rider's seat and correct use of aids. The rider certainly looks fit enough and able to perform all the tasks here without any problems. We always have to take certain things into consideration. This horse, for instance, is a very big horse, and Amber is not a very tall person. So these kind of things are also going to be somewhat of a mark in the artistic expression as well. But the rider is developed well. Her body doesn't collapse most of the time. She holds herself up, keeps her own core engaged throughout all of this. So the rider's level of physical development for this, we're going to give 7. Because once again, the actual performance itself has to be taken overall in these things. You know, the overall, if the horse were getting 8s and 9s on every movement that it's doing, well, the rider would probably be getting 8s and 9s, you know, on their on the rider's correct level of physical development. Now, artistic expression. Once again, I want to point out that artistic expression has a lot to do with the rhythm of the horse, meaning the two ends being in rhythm together that we talk about so much. You know, that impression that it all just looks seamless, which is what gives us that real artistic expression. Mr. Oliveira, once again, used to always say, you know, dressage should be a solemn procession, not something that people are hooting and hollering about. Like when we review any great work of art, it kind of leaves us in awe, but, you know, we're actually capable of having cathartic experience through watching something beautiful, right? And that's what we want to see. So anything that detracts from that, anytime the horse gets out of rhythm, for instance, the two ends of a horse. We see so many horses today working in dressage that are completely disunited between their front and back end. It looks very flashy. So does a saddlebred as a Tennessee Walker to somebody who doesn't know what they're looking at. Now, if that's what you like, well, more power to you. But I personally prefer where horses working over their back seamlessly, which is what the point of all this is. So artistic expression has a lot to do with that, how still everything looks, how we're not distracted by whatever the horse may be doing, changes of frame, changes of rhythm, erratic behavior, whatever, too much movement on the part of the rider. It should just look like the two of them are working seamlessly together without we shouldn't be able to see the wheels turning in terms of what we see the rider doing, having to work actively, like we see her doing right here. Her hands have come a little bit high. She's lifted herself up a little. Now she's having to balance the horse, but if we were going to get a very high score, we wouldn't see any of that, if you will. So on artistic impression here, overall, we're going to give this a 5, which means it's not too bad. It's not as good as it should get. It has a long way to go, or a bit of ways to go, you might say. You see here how her hands are up. We see her working a little bit too much. And these are all the kinds of things that affect that artistic expression. I hope you're all enjoying going through these tests with us. It's been a lot of fun trying to develop them. We're trying to develop tests that will help our riders educate our horses and ride tests that are reflective of how we actually train horses, being the goal here, so that we're not asking them to do things. Some of the problems with the USDF test over the years, as the judging became more and more ridiculous, it became the point where people were expecting horses to come in at training level and look like they're going Grand Prix. And people started scoring very highly for this as dressage became more of a breed sport. That is, if you didn't have whatever the popular breed is these days with the special kind of movement, you couldn't score well. And that's what we want to get away from. Now, of course, the horse that is the best mover, that is trained the best, should be the one that wins. But on the other hand, in today's world of dressage, we see a lot of horses that are badly trained and they're very good movers, but that's what they're being scored on and not the actual test themselves. They're nervous, they're hollow. The movements have become very angular and jerky, which is, of course, is all detrimental to the horse. And that's what we always have to want to keep thinking about, how we think about dressage. The goal of dressage has always been, to train a horse that is safe, fun to work with, and that, of course, takes into consideration the well-being of the horse itself, not only physically, but mentally as well. And, when horses are drilled and drilled and drilled and grinded and ground into these frames, day after day, over and over again, you can just see you can see the dead look in their eyes in so often cases, or the total panic in their eyes in many cases. And those things used to be counted down extremely. 30 years ago in dressage, if you rode into the ring with a horse even slightly behind the bit, you'd get a 40% or a 30%, which is what it should have been. Nowadays, people can come in the ring with the chin practically pinned to the chest and walk out with a 90-degree test. So that's what we're trying to get away from, and develop a sport, again, that everyone can be proud of and everyone can excel at if they're willing to spend the time to train their horse correctly, because it's the training that we should be judging, not just the horse flesh. And of course, at the end of the day, the best moving horse that is also trained correctly should be the one that wins and ridden correctly. But that doesn't always happen these days. This is Will Faerber from Art to Ride. I hope you're enjoying this process. These tests are a work in progress. We are in the process of defining them now, and are always interested in your comments about them as we develop them, and we look forward to your input. Thank you all very much for listening, and look forward to the next one soon.